All right, I'd like to start off by saying Barakatah Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahushai, Bahashem, Racha Kodash. Welcome to another live lesson. The name of this one is Take Christians into Deep Waters. And pretty much, you know, when you deal with these so-called Christians, you know, they don't know prophecy. Now, you may have some of the ones that have gone to college and, you know, have, you know, gone to those seminary schools that may have some knowledge of some prophecies, but they don't know the prophecies. And Vocab Malone definitely doesn't know the prophecies. This is the video by the brother, the Elder Karata Zabah, out of the Baltimore camp, and he was doing a response. GMS called "Cop." Seems as though a lot of the Deacon followers agree with GMS. And pretty much in this lesson, I just wanted to cover something that Vocab said here, because the brothers told him, you know, they were going into the beast or something like that. I can't remember because I watched this earlier, you know, but they were speaking about the beast or something like that. And I believe they mentioned NATO. And then Vocab put his big ass jumped up talking about, prove it, prove it. And I'm going to tell you something. Back when Vocab first started, he did not know how to approach the Israelites. He didn't know how to debate. And the Israelites would use that on him. Prove it. What scripture is that? So you know what he does now? He takes the same thing, the fucking culture vulture that he is. He takes the same things that he learned from the different interactions he had, you know, with the different Hebrew Israelite groups, and incorporates it into his shtick. Okay? That prove it, prove it. Give me, what scripture is that? That came from the Israelites. Okay? You didn't come up with that. You Christians don't have that in your vocabulary. Prove that. What scripture is that? You know? But anyways, needless to say, I'm going to play a little bit of this. Hopefully you can hear it. And then I'm going to hit a couple of precepts and see where the spirit goes.
The European nation, it started with the 10 horns in particular. While you're Googling, look up resolution against Israel. It says
yeah, and in Lord's will, I'm gonna tackle that. I gotta, you know, I got that queued up, but I gotta read into it a little bit. Something that he mentioned.
Right, it says you have something called vassal states, same as Rome and Rome. They have who, such as who? The Vandals, the Lombards, the Burgundians, the Anglo-Saxons. How does that prove your charge? Number one. The Ostrogoths. Number two, how does it answer any question? Naming a few of them, man. Number three, and so it's the same thing. America is Rome revitalized. Prove it. Look up NATO. Prove it. Look up NATO. North Atlantic Treaty Organization. What, Rome runs NATO?
He said, what? Rome runs NATO? You know? Now, we're going to get into that. Because, yes, Rome runs NATO. And the Rome that we're talking about is America. Because America is the new, revived ancient Roman Empire. The empire of the Edomites. Or the last empire of the Edomites. Now, when you go to NATO, right, this is what I typed in was, how was NATO created? Because I knew it was created in 1948. I believe that was January 1st, 1949. I'm sorry, 1949. You know, but I didn't really know every little specific about it. But when we read through here, it says, at present, NATO has 32 member countries. These countries, called NATO allies, are sovereign states that come together through NATO to discuss political and security issues and make collective decisions by consensus, which America runs that. America is the main spearhead in that. Okay, they front the majority of the money, the different budgets, you know, and pretty much when certain NATO countries want a particular nation to join, if America doesn't want them to join, guess what? They're not joining. You know, the whole situation of shutting everything down in Europe from Russia came from where? America. And who suffered? Did America suffer? Not really. It was the EU and NATO so-called European nations that were suffering, and that are still suffering because they were cut off. That's why Turkey said, the hell with you, we're going to go and deal with Russia, because according to prophecy, Russia is going to be a guard unto Turkey. You know, that's where you get Meshach, Tubal, so on and so forth. But when we come down here, they show you the flags. NATO was created by 12 countries from Europe and North America on 4th April 1949. So it wasn't January 1st. January 1st, that was the creation of the EU, which was January 1st, 1958. All right. It says since then, more than 20 more countries have joined NATO through 10 rounds of enlargement in 1952, and it gives you all the dates all the way up to 2024. Article 10 of the North Atlantic Treaty sets out how countries can join, blah, 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 blah. Any decisions to invite countries to join the alliance is taken by the North Atlantic Council, NATO's principal political decision-making body, on the basis of consensus among all allies. Yeah, but America is the one that gets, you know, the lion's share of that. 1949. On 4th April 1949, the foreign ministers from 12 countries signed the North Atlantic Treaty, also known as the Washington Treaty. Why was it known as the Washington Treaty? At the Department Auditorium in Washington, D.C., because it was signed in Washington, D.C. So who runs it? The modern Roman Empire. It was signed here in America, just like the Warsaw Treaty was signed in Warsaw. That's why it's called the Warsaw Treaty. That's where you have different treaties that were signed in those particular places. You know, you have the Treaty of Rome, which created the EU, you know, so on and so forth. And that's the main point. You know, NATO's founding members countries were Belgium, Canada, Denmark, France, Iceland, Italy, Luxembourg, the Netherlands, Norway, Portugal, the United Kingdom, and the United States. All right. But the point was that it was created and signed in Washington, D.C. Why? Because now it could have been signed. It could have been signed anywhere. Why here? To fulfill prophecy. Now you have Brussels, Belgium, right? That's a neutral country, and the EU, the capital of the EU is in Brussels, Belgium. Why couldn't they sign it in Brussels, Belgium? You know, just bear with me 1 second. Just 1 second. Just bear with me 1 second, Salakia. Yeah, and it is also the headquarters of NATO. NATO headquarters is the political and administrative center of the alliance. It is located at Boulevard Leopold III in Brussels, Belgium. So is the EU. So why couldn't they sign the treaty there? You have a building, both buildings. You have the EU building, which is a stylized cross, which are, you know, it's a cross, upside down cross with the broken arm, so to speak, which creates what they call the peace symbol, you know. And then you have the headquarters of NATO also in Brussels. Why couldn't they sign the treaty in Brussels or in another country? Why in America? Why in D.C., out of all places? D.C., Washington, D.C., because America is the revived Roman Empire. Now, prior to this, me doing this video, towards the latter part of my walk earlier, I was starting to listen to Elder Apostle Gabar's video, because he was making a response to this video here. And I wasn't sure what part of this video he was going to respond to, but when I started listening to him, that he was going to go into the part of the NATO part, I said, you know what, let me pause it there, because, you know, I have, you know, Spirit was on me to go into this, and I'm going to hit it and then break down whatever the Spirit gives me. The main focus is on Revelation, the 13th chapter, and I want to go back afterwards to watch Elder Apostle Gabar's video to see, you know, what the Spirit had him say about it, you know, because I caught that, you know. So NATO was created by Rome, the modern Rome, America, Babylon the Great. So let's go to Bible prophecy, where you can drown the average Christian unless they are a scholar and then they somewhat know their way around. But when it comes to the book of Revelation, trust and believe they don't know the book of Revelation. They'll know like certain points here and there, but they don't know the book of Revelation because the keys were not given to them. The keys were given to us. That was a lesson I was putting together earlier, like another part to the keys were given to us. But when this came up, I was like, man, I gotta jump on this. And also you have the whole cyber security thing that happened worldwide. I'm not sure if the first place it hit was in Australia, but there was a lot of places that were down, you know, and this is all, and the first thing that came to mind, you know, which Elder Pastor has spoken of, the first thing that came to mind, yep, they're getting the system ready to put everything online, make everything digital, so that, you know, people, you know, can have everything on there, you know, on because your whole life is on the web anyway, you know, you do all your business on the web anyway, you know, so they're going to push that MOTB, which is a microchip, into people's hands or the foreheads, mostly the hands, so that they can, you know, do a future business, and it will be online. All right, so I keep saying Romans. I got Romans on the brain. Well, maybe because of the Rome runs NATO. Revelation 13:1. And I stood upon the sand of the sea and saw a beast rise up out of the sea, having 7 heads and 10 horns. Now keep in mind, when the Apostle John saw this vision, he actually saw this vision of this beast with 7 heads and 10 horns actually coming up out of the sea. He was in a trance. Okay? But it wasn't an actual beast, although that's what he saw in his vision. It was a representation of 7 major countries, 7 major empires. And when you go to the 17th chapter, from around the 9th verse, it explains what these are, which the 7 heads are 7 mountains on which the woman sitteth, the woman being America. And the woman being America sitting on there, that means that she's running it. You see? Because the horse don't get on the cowboy, right? The cowboy gets on the horse, and the horse is subject to the cowboy. Whichever way the cowboy goes, you know, he turns him the reins wherever he wants. That's what America does. She's leading these nations the way she wants. But eventually they're going to turn on her because of prophecy. So you want to drown a Christian, bring him into deep waters, into the deep waters of prophecy. Bring the Christians into the deep waters of prophecy and watch them sink. And upon his horns, 10 crowns, and the 10 crowns is a representation, or the 10 horns is a representation of 10 minor nations, you know, that are a part of this beast system, you know, or 10 nations, should I say, that are part of the beast system. All right. And those are the modern names. You have modern names today, then you have the ancient names, which the ancient names go into you got your Ostrogoths, you got your Visigoths, you got your Burgundians, you got your Sueves, the Lombards, the Franks, the Alemanni, you know, and you have 3 other ones, you know, offhand I can't remember the other 3, you know, but you have a whole host of them, 10 altogether. I believe the Heraldry was 1, that's 8, and 2 more. The Anglo-Saxons, if I didn't mention, that's 9, and there would be 1 more. But those are the original names, but today they go by, you know, different names. All right, but it's the same regions. And upon his heads the names of blasphemy. Why? Because they call themselves Christians. They say that they're the Most High. When this country was established, it was established upon those principles. The Gauls, which are the French, the water, bro. And the beast which I saw was like unto a leopard. And now this is going into the beginning of the beast, the first head of the beast, of those 7 horns. The leopard represents the Greek Empire, which the notable horn, or not the notable horn, the king of that particular head would be Alexander the Great. What they call Alexander the Great, we call him Alexander the Greek or Alexander the Creep. He was the one that was on, you know, in that the head of that prophecy. It speaks about him in Daniel the 7th chapter. Well, actually Daniel the 8th chapter. Speaks about him in Daniel the 11th chapter. Speaks about him in the book of okay. And his feet were as the feet of the bear. Now, Russia was never a part of the beast, but Russia is going to bring the end. It's going to be one of the main nations that brings an end to America, Babylon the Great, this beast. All right? And in his mouth is the mouth of a lion. The mouth represents what? This is the power, the power of who's running things behind the scenes. America is the front man. America is what they call the patsy. But behind the scenes, the Rothschilds are running pretty much America behind the scenes. Okay? That's who the mouth is. The mouth of the lion, which is England. All right? And the dragon gave him his power and his seat and great authority. The dragon represents, the Roman Empire. All right? The Roman Empire is the dragon. It says, and I saw one of his heads as it were wounded to death. So what was one of his heads as it was wounded to death? The Roman Empire. Because the Lord gave the Apostle John a vision of that Roman Empire falling. And it so happens that the year that he got this vision, the Roman Empire actually fell to Jake that same year. Because the one that came to the throne was Nerva, but Nerva was up in age. He was like in his 60s by the time he came into power. And Domitian was taken out. He was actually assassinated by this one individual. All right, he was taken out. So Nerva began the reign, they said the reign of the 5 good emperors, which were Jake's. So that's really when Jake started really ruling, because Vitellius, I believe it was, during the year of the 4 emperors, he was the first Jake, but he really didn't stay there long. That was like a very turbulent time that year. 69 AD? That was a very turbulent year for emperors. They went through 4 emperors, and finally Vespasian, which was the top general of the Roman Empire at that time, he became Caesar. Because Caesar was not just predicated upon, having the love of the people, but it was also predicated upon knowing, politics, how to, deal with politics and the senators. But one of the main things that got you the seat of a Caesar was your military experience, And some of those individuals didn't have the military experience, but some of them did. All right, so it said, and I saw one of his heads as it was wounded to death. So this happened that the Roman Empire fell. That's why eventually it became known as the Holy Roman Empire or the Byzantine Empire. All right, and that's when this was wounded to death, because when Jake came in there, they pretty much followed the same layout of the Roman Empire, the pagan Roman Empire, until they made Christianity the official religion of the empire, which was really cemented like around 380 AD by Theodosius, I believe his name was. He really made, because Constantine converted, but he allowed the Christians and the pagans to worship, because he was a pagan, he was a sun worshiper, So Theodosius around 380, he made Christianity the official, not language, the official religion of the ancient Roman Empire, or actually the modern Roman Empire, which was Jake ruling, the Holy Roman Empire. Right? And that's when his deadly wound was healed. That's when the Romans were taken down, the Edomite Romans were taken down, and Jake set up. And all the world wondered after the beast, meaning there was going to be a point when this particular beast that was wounded unto death was going to be healed. And when did that healing take place? During the time of the Renaissance. Elder Apostle Tahar just did a lesson yesterday on pretty much like the Dark Ages and the different points, and different things that were going on. So the healing part came during the time of the Renaissance, which the word Renaissance means rebirth. Now, why was it known as a Renaissance or the rebirth? Because that's when Esau came back into power. All right, they'll tell you that there was no knowledge, that there was no art form, and there was none of this and that and the other during the Dark Ages. That's why they call it the Dark Ages. No, they called it the Dark Ages because dark nations, Jake, the Israelites were ruling. So-called Negroes were ruling. And that's why they call it the Dark Ages. And when Esau came in, they had to be reborn again. Why? Because their wound was healed. And when their wound was healed, they began the great deception, pursuant to Revelation, the 20th chapter. Then the whole world wondered after them. It says, and they worshiped the dragon. Who was a dragon? The Roman Empire, which gave power unto the beast. Right, because America gets its power from the ancient Roman Empire, and this is according to prophecy. But vocab don't know that. Vocab will read this and tell you that it's talking about, that it's talking about the actual beast. Yeah, they were locusts too. Big, gigantic locusts. It says, and they worship the beast, saying, who is like unto the beast, who is able to make war with him, right? Because once America got into power, and once NATO and the EU got in that fray, and they created this union, the European Union and NATO, they became a force to be reckoned with. Okay? Now, you could read on more, but I'm just going to jump down to the 11th verse. And I beheld another beast coming up out of the earth. So who is this other beast that was coming up out of the earth? This is America, who got the power from the dragon coming back into power. Okay? And I beheld another beast coming up out of the earth. And he had two horns like a lamb. And this represents their political system, the Democrats and the Republicans. Back then, they would be known as the plebeians and the patricians, right? Does not America, model itself after the ancient Roman Empire? America fashioned like the Roman Empire. Let's see. America is eerily retracting Rome's steps to a fall. Is the United States similar to the Roman Empire? Ancient Rome and present-day America share similar systems of government. And you can see this is not, this picture you see right here, this picture right here, this right here, this ain't America, people. See, that's not America. That's Rome. You had something called Capitoline Hill, which was the main headquarters of Zeus. And they built a temple to Zeus. I'm not sure if this is it here. But then you have in America, what? Capitol Hill. And look at the stylized building structures. Now, when we say that, or the prophecy says that they pretty much were set up like the ancient Roman Empire, it doesn't mean all of America. Because obviously when you go to different parts of America, you have Gothic type style, buildings, you have ranches, you have colonial type structures. You have different types of structures. So it's not talking about America in general, it's talking about the governmental buildings of America. Any municipality, any government building that you see in America is going to be stylized with the Roman pillars and the Roman, architecture, just like you see here in Rome. And another thing that they had in Rome was what? The Colosseums, amphitheaters, Colosseums, and that's what the same thing you have here in America. You had bread and circuses in Rome. What was the bread and circuses about? It was a distraction of food and games, Olympic Games, to keep the people distracted from the real issues that were at hand. That's the same thing they do here in America, bread and circuses, but just in a modern way, And what is it set up for? To distract the people, to keep them away from the real issues that are really going on, in the political arena. All right? So, it says, ancient Rome and present-day America have share similar systems of government. When constructing the new government, the founding fathers of America looked to Rome for what? Inspiration, to be breathed in. So their inspiration to build up America and to set up the system of America it came from what? From Rome. Why? Is it just like they could have picked anything? They could have picked, Egypt, which they did. There were certain things they took from Egypt. They could have picked Sumeria. They could have picked Babylon. They could have picked Assyria. They could have picked the Medo-Persian Empire. You had many different empires back then that had great, civilizations. They had great forms of judgment. Why did they pick Rome? Prophecy. So you want to drown a Christian? Take them into the deep waters of prophecy, and throw them out there without a life raft. All right. So it says they drafted the 3 branches of government, just like the threefold system of government used by the ancient Romans. And when you look at all of the different building structures, if you type in Senate House in Rome, you're going to get a Senate House. You're going to get the same building structures. You're going to see the inside of the ancient Roman Senate House, and it was set up with the chairs arrayed in circles, like a half circle, which would represent the rays of the sun. Same thing with America. You go to the Senate House of America, you're going to see that the way they set up America is the same way that they set up ancient Rome. Okay? Why is that? Prophecy. Now, going back to Revelation 13 and 11, and he had 2 horns like a lamb. That's their 2-party system. When you go to First Maccabees, right? This is mostly for the newer members. You brothers that have been here, for a while, you already know this. This is not new news to you. One thing about the truth is that it's repetitive because it's the truth. And the beautiful thing about being repetitive is that, once you get the breakdowns, every once in a while you might go over breakdowns and stuff, but being that brothers are doing videos all the time, when they do the video and you watch it, pretty much it's like a refresher course for you. Just, to just brush up, on certain points. First Maccabees 8:1. Now Judas had heard of the Romans. So the point here is the Romans. When we jump down to the 13th verse, also that whom they would help to a kingdom, those reign, and whom again they displace. Finally, that they were greatly exalted. Why? Why were they greatly exalted? Because it was their time. It was in the prophetic timetable, it was time for the Romans to reign. Yet for all this, none of them wore a crown. Why didn't they wear a crown? Or was clothed in purple to be magnified thereby? Because the way that the Roman Empire was run was different than any other empire before them, as foretold by the prophecy. The ancient empires would be run by what? Monarchs. Kings would sit on thrones. They would have sons. Those sons would be princes. If they didn't have any sons, they may have like a close relative that might take over the crown, unless they got assassinated. And that's how ancient, empires were ruled or run. But when the Romans came in, they did it by setting up one man over the whole realm every year. Today they have it every 4 years. Same thing. It says, moreover, how they had made for themselves what? A Senate house. You type in Senate house, right? Let's see. Type in Senate house. Let me just get it here. Senate house. Rome. The Curia Julia. All right. So, Lucky, let me just dry off my feet real quick. Okay. All right. Curia Julia, I think that means law. Curia Julia, Senate House. Which that was, I believe that was named after Julius Caesar, if I'm not mistaken. You can't tell me them Edomites can't build. Yeah, and like I was saying to you, brothers, and you few sisters, like you see how sometimes you might be making points, and like you'll see Elder Pastor or Elder Pastor Gabar or some of the other elders or bishops making points and doing like a live lesson or a premiere, and you see how, you know, you have to stop, you have to look things up, and you have to type certain questions in Google and look for certain information. That's how you study also. So you're getting, you know, a well-rounded teaching. You're getting the breakdown of the scriptures, you're getting history, you're getting, you know, how to look things up on your own. And the thing about it is, if you're not sure of something, if you look it up and you're wrong, hey, it happens. But at least, you know, you did the work, you put the work in, you know, and this is how you learn how to research. All right. So you're getting everything here. Curia Julia. It was the third Senate house in Rome and was built under the orders of Julius Caesar. So Julia part definitely, I figured that was Julius Caesar. Curia meaning. The word curia has multiple meanings, including ancient Rome political division of people. Or court. That's what I figured. You know, so Julius court. All right, Julius's court. All right, so you have the Curia Julia, which is the ancient Roman Senate. Images, you have them here. You see the structures. You know, this is the obelisk, which is the sun worship. You know, which they got that from Rome. I'm sorry, not from Rome, from Egypt. All right. Then when you go through the inside of the Curia Julia, they have different ones. Remember, that was just one under Julius Caesar. When you go into there, you have what's known as a Senate house. And that Senate house, you see that the seats are arrayed in a half circle, like the rays of the sun. And these were the senators. Now, when you do that for today, Senate House America, and this is just to show you some of the similarities. Then you have the, you know, the Capitol Hill. Then you have what? The Senate House. The senators sitting there, what? In half round circles, like the rays of the sun. Then in certain instances, you'll have the fasci, which is a bundle of sticks with a hatchet head on top. You know, you'll see them here at the podium, which this one doesn't have it. You know, and these are all. And it tells you when you do the research that they actually stylized America according to the ancient Roman Empire. That's not a mystery. All right? So when it says Revelation 13:11, and I beheld another beast coming up out of the earth, and he had two horns like a lamb, that's the two-party system. They call it a bipartisan system. The word bi is two, partisan is party. Two-party system. And he spake as a dragon. Dragon goes back to the Greek word drakon. Dracon represents their legislation. This is why you hear terms like Draconian legislation. Let's go to that. Draconian, so you can get an understanding on draconian legislation, which is what they're pushing today. Legislation. Meaning. Draconian legislation is legislation that is extremely severe or goes beyond what is right or necessary. Why? Because the laws that they got in place today, when they so-called establish it, they establish it with freedoms. You know, the freedom to vote, you know, the freedom to assemble peaceably, the freedom to, you know, of religion, the freedom of this, the freedom of that. But what they're doing is slowly but surely they're closing the gap, right? And when they close the gap completely, what's going to happen is they're going to make this legislation work on their behalf to make it draconian, to where if you don't comply, you're at the point to be put to death. And then you heard Trump himself, if he gets reelected, he's bringing back the firing squad, you know, the guillotine, you know. So he may be the one, you know, that brings in that draconian legislation, because who else are they going to get in there? Kamala Harris? Come on, man. Stop playing. Revelation 20, right? Oh, matter of fact, another one came to mind. I believe that's Daniel, the 3rd chapter. And okay, cool. So we'll click on that, and then we'll come back here. Now, Revelation 20, right? This chapter jumps back and forth in history. Okay? And this is why this one of the most difficult chapters in Revelation to understand, because it jumps back and forth in history. And that's why you have even Israelites that get confused breaking the scripture down. Like the Bishop Nathaniel brought out that, you know, Gog and Magog are going to get back into power, and they're going to take us back down, put us in captivity for 1,000 years. No, that already happened, dog. You know, that already happened. And that's why, you know, this chapter, it seems like it's saying that, but it's not when you break it down correctly. Now, if you was to read this, you know, let's say you was to read this like a novel, so to speak, you would read the 1st, 2nd, 3rd verse. Then you would read the 4th verse, right? Then the 5th verse, right? No, actually, I'm sorry. See? And it could get confusing. The 1st, 2nd, and 3rd verse, right? Then after you read the 1st, 2nd, and 3rd verse, then the 7th verse to the end would be the next part of it. That would be in order, right? So to speak. Then when the kingdom is established, after all of this, the destruction, the judgments, you know, and all that, the great deception, so on and so forth, then you will come to the 5th verse, actually the 4th to the 6th verse. All right? And that this would be the order. So in Revelation 24 it says, and I saw thrones, and they that sat upon them, and judgment was given unto them. Right? So this is dealing in the kingdom of heaven. And I saw the souls of them that were what? Beheaded for the witness of Yahushai. Why were they beheaded? You know, the guillotine was used, or a sword was used to chop their head off. Why? Because they did not comply with the legislation and the mandates and the orders that were put up by the beast. It says, and for the word of the Most High, which had not worshipped the beast, neither his image, neither had received his mark upon their foreheads or in their hands, and they lived and reigned with Yahushai 1,000 years. Because what the Apostle John saw was in the future, in the kingdom, the souls that got beheaded and that were reigning with Yahushai. All right? And they didn't worship the beast. So what happened? Because the legislation was in place, that draconian legislation we were talking about, and they didn't comply with it, some of them were beheaded. But what did that do? That cemented their place in the kingdom of heaven. See, this thing is going to get real. You know, we're about to enter into those deep waters. And Lord's will, man, this will actually be the year of Jacob's trouble. You know, they're talking about the bee, you know, the flying, you know, virus, you know, coming, you know, maybe like sometime in October or something like that, you know. And you see a lot of distractions going on, things playing out behind the scenes. See, that's the bread and circuses part. The bread and circuses is the distraction to lead you away from what's really happening behind the scenes. Whether it's some type of legislation, whether it's some other event, some other scandal, whatever the case may be, they're getting all the chips in place, but they know that the majority of the people still are distracted. Right? So this proves that there's going to be draconian legislation. Just like when we go back to the time of Nebuchadnezzar, right? He set up a golden image. And they said that whenever, and there was a law set up that whenever you heard the sound of music, this was commanded to all nations to bow down. Matter of fact, verse 4, then an herald cried aloud, to you it is commanded, O people, nations, and languages, that at what time you hear the sound of the cornet, flute, harp, sackbut, psaltery, dulcimer, and all kinds of music, right? You fall down and worship the golden image that Nebuchadnezzar the king have set up. So you have to bow down to this particular image. Now back then it was an actual physical image. Today it represents the ancient Roman Empire and the way that they're setting up and establishing this new system that's coming online. You see? And what happened if they didn't do this and bow down? You couldn't worship your God, just like happened during the Greek Empire. You couldn't call yourself a Jew. You couldn't worship the Sabbath. You couldn't circumcise your sons. You couldn't keep any high holy days. You couldn't even call yourself an Israelite. So what did you have to call yourself? A Greek. A Greek. So what happened? There is no difference between Jew or Greek. Why? Because they're both Israelites. Just one was speaking the Greek language, following the Greek customs. The other one was speaking Hebrew, following the real law, statutes, and commandments, which those Israelite or those Greek Israelites were a part of that, but they fell away. So they were aliens, strangers from the Commonwealth of Israel, because the Commonwealth of Israel belongs to Israel. And why were they strangers to it? Because they fell away from it. And the law became strange to them. And what became popular to them? The Greek ways, the Greek customs, the Hellenization. So it was normal to them to wear a toga, have brandings, eat pork, have no beard, probably have a bald head, play in the, butt naked in those arenas, in those games, in the Olympics, right? But what was strange to them is wearing a long Hebrew Israelite garment with borders of blue and fringes, wearing a beard, not eating pork, keeping the laws, the statutes, the commandments. That was foreign to them, keeping the Passover, the high holy days, the Sabbath. And that was the big controversy, the big mystery. It says here, the point, and whoso falleth not down and worshipeth shall the same hour be cast into the midst of a burning fiery furnace, which happened to the three children, the three sons, Azariah, Mishael, and Hananiah. Okay, I like to try to remember their Hebrew names because they're known. Everybody knows them as Mishael, Shadrach, Mishael. How to go? Shadrach, Mishael, and Abednego. But we like to call them by their Hebrew names: Azariah, Mishael, and Hananiah. All right, and in this time they were cast into the furnace, but guess what? They were delivered. Just like you'll have some Israelites today that will get caught up in the fray, that'll be put in those detention centers. They'll be, they'll be threatened that if they don't take the MOTB, they'll be put to death, and they'll be on a list to be put to death. And then you'll see an angel come kicking the door, waving, not the 4-4, but the laser, you know, coming in there with waving that sword, about to chop Esau into fours. Salaki, don't laugh at me. You know, I ain't as smooth as vocab. That was a joke, by the way. Maybe it was in poor taste, but it was a joke. Nevertheless. So pretty much that's what happened, but they were delivered here. But you're going to have some that's going to get caught up in this draconian legislation, going to get caught up in this whole system, right? As far as, you know, being in these detention centers, as we read in the book of First Maccabees. I'm sorry, why I got Maccabees on the brain. Second Ezra 16 and 68 to the point. Matter of fact, I started 67. Behold, the Most High himself is the judge. Fear him. Right, because if you fear Esau, what's going to happen? You're going to die with Esau. But if we fear Yahweh Bashem Yahushai, Yahweh Bashem Yahushai could deliver us from certain situations. Just like he delivered our forefathers. He delivered Joseph. He delivered Jeremiah. Jeremiah was thrown in the pit for teaching the words that the Lord told him to teach. And he was sinking in that mire. And eventually they came and got him out. And delivered him just in the nick of time. That's something, man. Leave off from your sins and forget your iniquities, to meddle no more with them forever. So shall the Most High lead you forth and deliver you from all trouble. This is similar to what Yahushai said, because you have kept the word of my patience. Patience means to suffer. You know? Being labeled all kind of, you know, slanderous names. Being the most hated group. You know? Being constantly lied upon. There's a reward for that, man. Setting the stage for these devils to come against us, to say all kind of lies. But that's all right, because the Lord said he's going to deliver us out of all trouble. For behold, the burning wrath of a great multitude is kindled over you, which that burning wrath is going to be when the Lord brings the time of Jacob's trouble. Which Esau is going to be involved in that, the nations. And they shall take away certain of you and feed you, being idle. Where's that at? In these detention centers. With things offered unto idols, just like they did in the past. And they that consent unto them shall be had in derision and in reproach and trodden underfoot. Why? Because when they don't need you anymore, they scarred you. You're just a pawn to them. For there shall be in every place and in the next cities a great insurrection upon those that fear the Lord. See, insurrection is an uprising against the ones that believe in the Lord Yahweh Bashem Yahushai, and even against Jake in general. They shall be like madmen, sparing none. That's dealing with their forces, their, you know, governmental agencies, their troops, FEMA troops, so on and so forth. But let's not forget their foreign troops that they got here, the Gurkhas and others, but still spoiling and destroying those that fear the Lord, because you're going to find out that the main threat to the New World Order is us, the Hebrew Israelites. Because the most dangerous person out there is the one that teaches and tells the truth, you know, and the one that has nothing to lose. That's why Yahushua said, he that loveth his life shall lose it, but he that hateth his life in this world shall gain it. There's nothing to live for here. Nothing excites you. And the longer you're here, the more depressed you become. Like the scriptures say, though, he that increases in knowledge increases in sorrow. But what gives us joy and comfort is that the Lord said he's going to do these things for us. He's going to deliver us when the time comes. For they shall waste and take away their goods and cast them out of their houses. See? Why? Because they're going to push their agenda. Then shall they be known who are my chosen, and they shall be tried as gold in the fire. Right? Because the Lord is going to cause some type of divine intervention to come in between the elect and Esau. Because just like they can't deceive the elect, they're not going to be able to get all of the elect. They're going to get some, because they're going to be first to be raised out of the grave, but they're not going to get all. You know? Hear, O ye my beloved, save the Lord Yahweh Bashem El Shai. Behold, the days of trouble are at hand. And this, you know, these test and trial runs that they're doing is all set up to, you know, bring in the next system in place. But I will deliver you from the same. So the Lord said he will do it. We can bank on his word. So going to draconian legislation that is extremely severe or goes beyond what is right or necessary. Because they're not concerned with right. They're not concerned with our needs. What they're concerned with is their agenda. And like the scriptures say, when they're about to fill their belly, or when they're about to eat, then the Lord shall cast the fury of his wrath upon them. It says the term comes from Draco. This was an Athenian lawgiver, an Athenian lawmaker who lived in 600 BCE, which is BC, before Yahushua or before Common Era, and created a written constitution for Athens that standardized punishments for crimes. Right, so he had a law. He had laws set up, you know, to give a sense of organization, but it was severe. These punishments were harsh and extreme, such as the same punishment for murder and pilfering, which means death. The laws were intended to end the social instability of ancient Athens. So if you murder somebody, you get put to death, which that, you know, the penalty fits the crime, right? Or however you say that. But if you stole a loaf of bread and got caught because you were hungry, you were put to death also. That was the severity. That's where the draconian part comes in. You know, and if they knew the Bible says, you know, don't despise a thief if he steals, you know, because he's hungry. You know, he's trying to satisfy his soul. These devils don't do that. They don't care. They don't give a damn about that. So you know what the Lord gonna do when they come back? He's like, kill their ass. Inside joke. So that's, and he spake as a dragon. So America, who is this beast, and he, meaning the beast, America, Babylon the Great, exerciseth all the power of the first beast before him. So who was the first beast before him? America, Rome. And we just read that America was America and the forefathers patterned America after the ancient Roman Empire. And he exercises all the power of the first beast before him, and causeth the earth and them which dwell therein to worship the first beast, whose deadly wound was healed. In the form of what? America. Through what? The Renaissance. Because America came out of the Renaissance union of all of those 7 empires from the past, the 7 heads. All right, let's look up this word, exerciseth. All right, the word exercises is poeo. To make with the names of things made, to produce, construct. Right, so they constructed it in the same fashion, form, fashion, etc. See? To be the authors, so on and so forth. So you get the idea. So America is, or should I say, NATO is run by Rome, which is here in the form of America, because NATO was signed on April 4th, April 1949. The foreign ministers from 12 countries signed the North Atlantic Treaty, which NATO stands for North Atlantic Treaty Organization, also known as the Washington Treaty. Why? Because it was signed in Washington, D.C., at the Department Auditorium in Washington, D.C. And for the ones that don't believe, this is an actual image that was taken of the actual event back in 1949. And it was President Truman that was the president at the time when this was created and signed here in America, the modern Rome. And look at that, Roman pillars. This is Rome. All right. So with that, I pray that you brothers and few sisters have been edified. Till the next time I say, Shalom.